Welcome to Conversations with Educators, where we bring educators from across the country to talk about topics like college and career readiness, graduation tracking, teacher growth, assessment coordination, and more. Let's get started.
All right. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome to all of you who have decided to join us today. I'm so excited to let you hear about CTE and our guest speaker, and thank you for just spending your time today. We'll also be sending a recording of this out so that you know. But anyway, welcome. My name is Robbie Grimes. I'm a customer success manager for Education Advanced. I want to thank you for being here. And I also have my colleague, Lisa Tunnell, who is a product manager. You will hear from her a little bit today. She also is a former CTE director. I'm a former educator myself in Indiana. And then we also have Ben Barkey, who is, well, I'll let him introduce himself to you as our guest speaker. But let me talk a little bit about the agenda today. As you can see on my screen here, today's conversation is going to be about CTE. Three simple topics: an audit of schedules, and catching some errors within CTE data, collaborating across teams. How do you work with other teams if you are the CTE director, or if you are the team? Also, hopefully Ben has some information that he can share with you there as well. And then also, how do you streamline the process? What tools do you use and in your process of tracking CTE, tracking funding, all of those types of things? And we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the very end. You are welcome to go ahead and use the Q&A tool that is available to you within Zoom and put some questions in there. If they are in there, Ben, I'll go ahead and kind of interject them in between. But Lisa has some content she wants to share as well. So I will let Ben introduce himself to you, and then we'll just kind of I'll stop sharing so that you can actually see all of us well. But Ben, thank you so much for joining us today from Warsaw, and I will turn the platform over to you.
Thanks, Robbie. I appreciate the opportunity to maybe share some knowledge that I have. For those of you that are out in the audience, a lot of the stuff, it can be really complicated, especially when dealing with school funding and accountability. For those of you that aren't familiar with Northern Indiana, that's where I'm located, Warsaw, Indiana. It's kind of in between South Bend and Fort Wayne. I graduated from Warsaw High School in 1997, and I've only worked for Warsaw my entire life. I kid that I've been in the system since about 1985 as a kindergarten student, and here it is 46 years later, still within the system. This is my fourth year as the Career Center Director. Prior to that, I was an elementary teacher for 5 years, assistant principal at our high school, a STEM instructional coach, and then a middle school science and math teacher. It really helps working in career tech ed in the community that you grew up in. I think it helps accelerate those connections that are so vital to helping our students find clarity within their pathways. I acknowledge and appreciate all the other CTE directors that maybe didn't grow up in the community, or things where I just can't imagine, or have lots of other districts coming to their center. Warsaw's Career Center, we are a fairly large high school, about 2,000 students. But in terms of like Indiana Career Centers, we're actually one of the smallest, or one of the, I don't know, top 30th largest high schools in the state of Indiana. But our Career Center is actually one of the smallest, mostly because we serve predominantly Warsaw Community High School students and some Tippecanoe Valley High School students. So the information I'm sharing comes from that lens versus a career center that has 4, 5, 6. There's some of you guys out here that have 14 districts coming to you. So I can't imagine, the me collecting all the data and then multiplying that out by 4 or 5 complexity levels because of different districts coming in would be very stressful. For me, I do most of the data entry, school accountability, community local needs assessment, just because of our size. And I also, because of my background, I do love data and science. So that's a little bit about me. I guess I'm one of the fortunate ones that nerd out over data entry and seeing how that impacts funding and accountability.
All right. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. We do have some guiding questions to kind of lead us on our discussion today, so we're excited to jump into the content. In my former life before EAI, I was a CTE director, and so I know before the call we were kind of discussing the parallels between Texas and Indiana, and we know one of the common pain points, one of the common languages among CTE directors is analysis and accountability and auditing data. And so kind of to kick us off, do you have a favorite success story or a time when catching a misalignment early made a big difference? What are some of the things that you look for there?
Yeah, so fortunate for me, like at Warsaw, our former director did a really good job of aligning the master schedule to maximize career center funding dollars. In Indiana, we call it Form 30A. So taking that knowledge of being very strategic with schedules and how kids take certain classes, our partner, Tippecanoe Valley High School, last year I sat down with them after I felt comfortable with how the process and system works, and working with them saying, hey, if you align your master schedule this way, or if you work the scheduling this way, or organize the classes this way, you actually will generate more career center dollars. And that for them, because they're a smaller district, ended up being a nice significant chunk that they were actually losing every year. And it's nobody's fault. It's complicated. I would imagine in any state when you're talking about extra funding and the budget's being really tight, that there's always lost opportunities and nobody's there to tell you how to maximize those dollars. And it's just taking the rules in place and making sure you're using that to maximize funding. Even for our example, there is a class called Preparing for College and Careers that all freshmen have to take. Our funding only works, you only get funding for the first semester. Because our high school is so large, some of our freshmen would take it first semester, some of our freshmen would take it second semester. And this is the first year that we actually changed our master schedule and pushed everybody into first semester, which you're talking about. Historically, we had about 9 sections of, we call it PCC. In the first semester, 9 sections in the second semester. So we were losing half our funding. And I think that dollar amount was about $30,000. So there's just certain things. Last year, I learned that advanced child development for Indiana is funded only if they take it in the first semester. And historically, we'd have kids take child development, then advanced. And so working with our teachers, I was like, hey, can we move some of these kids advanced in the first semester so we can get funding? So just this year alone, doing those minor tweaks puts us in around the $50,000 mark. And it wasn't anything tricky. It was just making sure that your master schedule was aligned to help maximize those dollars. So anytime you can generate more funding and not do anything tricky, just a couple tweaks is always a positive moment for those. And working with your partners to help them realize that as well.
I love that. And I just want to dive just a little bit deeper there. What's worked well for you in getting counselors, CTE staff, scheduling teams, all on the same page, breaking down silos, to work, to get on the same page for kids ultimately?
Yeah, no, I'd be crazy to say like, hey, we got it all lock and step. I think for our community local needs assessment for the last couple of years, and for those of that you don't know, that's part of the Perkins 5 process that every 2 years you have to do a community local needs assessment. That's been a goal of ours, is marketing and information. So it's constantly having that conversation, because again, I'm just dealing with two high schools with school counselors, and it's important for our students. These classes are there to help them find clarity on what they're interested in, and it's also there to help them further their journey with dual credit. So there's constant conversations, because we all know that personnel change all the time. And so our PCC class for Indiana, it's a required class. That conversation starts early. So those teachers that are delivering like, hey, within these career centers, here's the classes you offer, and how important they are. It starts at day one. We've been in school in Indiana for 5 weeks. So we're in the 6th week of PCC. We have 4 teachers that teach it. My assistant director used to be a PCC teacher. She leads that professional learning community. And so it is scripted with some guided autonomy to the day. And we're entering into for what we call like their 4-year plan. And that is so important, the way we do it at Warsaw Community High School is we have a grade level counselor. So that grade level counselor needs to be really on point with what we have to offer. And because the grade level counselor follows with them, guess what? Next year, I'm going to have a new freshman counselor, and things are changing in Indiana, right? With a new graduation requirement. So we have to educate those students and those counselors every year to make sure that they can take the right classes, know what we're offering. We use our radio and TV teachers to create videos for students instead of a course description guide. So there's so many small little steps that are so important to help provide clarity for our students, getting them in the right pathway, getting them in multiple pathways to really help those students once they graduate. Where are they going? How can we help? And so it's a huge community effort with a lot of collaboration in tons of different avenues. We're even starting a career service collaboration, where if those of you are out there very familiar with the PLC model, where that's an hour working on gaps in student learning and learning from each other, that this is more like when a student changes their mind and they're in triage, right? Like it's often that you can, I'm sure Lisa, you've had this, where a senior at Christmas completely pivots from their pathway, and you want to help them. And the school might not have the resources, but community members do. So we're building a system even within that using that structured 1 hour time, where community members and our teachers would come in and we would identify students that need triage. And it doesn't matter what age or what they need help with that's career related. We would surround them by the resources. We might have the resources internally in the Career Center. It might be where, a foundational organization that's passionate about helping students would say, you know what, I can take this student here and I can connect them with this individual in our community. So it's very complex, but it's also very important to make sure you get it right.
Ben, I love that idea of the PLC. And do you have other things that you in your role that you bring students and families into the process so that they're understanding and they can correct misalignments before it's too late, before they can't make changes?
That's a great question. I think that's a growth area for us. The parent piece. And this is an Indiana thing, and I don't know what other states are, but Indiana ranks 8th lowest of school counselor to student ratio. A couple of years ago, we were 6th lowest. Our ratio, if you look it up, is typically 1 to low 500s. Because of that, and because of scheduling in our high school, because we have 500 kids in the freshman class, it's impractical to bring parents in for those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would take super long. So we don't yet, but that's also something as we identify as a district and a career center and a community. The research is out there that a 1 to 200 ratio of counselor to student is where you get significant returns on that counseling. And obviously we're not even close to that. But when you get to that number, that's when you can invite parents in, because I don't know if you guys remember when you were a senior, but if I was a senior, even if I'm interested in insert whatever pathway, right? Biomedical. And the counselor says, hey, we have an opportunity for you to go to your local community college and take this class. And by the way, it's free because a foundation sees it as such a huge need in your community. You can do that. It's often that sometimes seniors would say, yeah, it's my senior year. I really don't want to work that hard second semester. Can I take a study hall? Can I be a monitor? Whereas if the parent was sitting there and hearing all that, even if the kid was bold enough to say, yeah, I just want to take study hall, the mom or the dad there's going to be like, no, we're going to go ahead and have you enroll at that community college and take advantage of that credit. So it's a growth area for us, because there are so many opportunities. Parents play a vital role, and I can't think of too many parents that would allow their son or daughter who is very interested in this field, opt out and take something that doesn't help them at all, versus like going to a college campus to take a free college course. And that happens sometimes, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to circle back because you mentioned a few things that sounded really efficient, and we all want to avoid reinventing the wheel every year. How have you made your process repeatable and easier to sustain year after year? You mentioned scripting and things along those lines, where you're providing those tools for your counselors.
Well, luckily for us, I have a great staff. I have a assistant director who has been a PCC teacher So empowering them to go through that process really helps. And if you would have asked me that question 2 years ago, we weren't there. My assistant director was still teaching. So now that you have that importance, and also you tag that in with the new diploma that in a good way forces us to reevaluate kind of what we're doing. And because I'm a math science minded person and working smarter, not harder, I do like to create systems so that way you don't have to worry about it again. So that way when you do identify whether it's a student issue with a pathway or communicating to community members, it's already going to be taken care of because this is what we've done in the past. In terms of data and how I take data for accountability or funding, I know we had this conversation earlier. I am only good as the data that's coming to me. I have 2 districts. I don't know what Tippecanoe Valley High School does at their school specifically. I know enough to be dangerous, but whatever data they give me that I'm asking for is I can't dive in and say, oh, there's a problem here. I know we actually have 10 more students in that class. Whereas my data, I'm a little bit more confident, but I pull it from our student information system. And again, if even the naming of the class is wrong that I'm pulling just slightly with a dual credit, and that's going to impact our data and how I report it to the state. And it could just be a common error. So I'm always skeptical of our data just because it's complex. So, and I try to work with our tech department we use PowerSchool, Tippecanoe Valley uses Skyward, and they both tackle the accountability report slightly differently. And again, I'm only as good as what the data comes. And the data that we're pulling, if you're familiar with Excel, column A, right, to Z, well, our data pull is like column BM. So there are like, oh gosh, there's rows and rows and rows of data, 60 plus that you have to enter in. And so pulling that from the system, again, one small error with a naming, because that's how we sort this stuff, could cause funding issues or graduation requirement issues that you'll have to fix later, which is not impossible to do. Our system is designed where you can actually fix your errors. It just takes time. And I would rather be working with community members on upskilling a program, working with our new teachers because they're coming from the industry and they have no background, versus me going in and spending 15 hours fixing errors that are preventable through correct data pools.
So I have 2 follow-up questions. One, let's talk money or repercussions for a minute. What's at stake if these misalignments or errors slip through? And how do you make that impact clear to your teams or, the people that you work with?
Right. Well, so the way our system works in Indiana, it is very nice because at the end, if there is like gaps from the system standpoint of data you've uploaded, it'll give you funding errors. And so that means you just got to look through each kid and try to fix those funding errors. Some of them are fixable, some of them aren't. And that's kind of how you learn the hard way. So that's very helpful. And then you just communicate to counselors, or if it's another district, those stakeholders on, hey, we actually lost money because X, Y, or Z. But you have a window to fix all of those errors. And I would say 75% of them are fixable. The other 25, like on my end, I know about, right? Because those are the kids, for example, if they miss a prereq, for us, it's principles of insert pathway, principles of biomedical, concentrator A, concentrator B. If they miss principles, let's say they took AP biology, right? Well, the principles of biomedical is going to be too beneath them. There's a process that we have that will allow them to skip that. But what that does is now that student's no longer eligible for funding because they're not taking it in progression. We don't do that a lot because we don't want to miss funding. But again, we also don't want to have disengagement for our students because that principles class is beneath them. So I would say on average, we have 5 to 10 kids that we have allowed to skip a principles class. So on my end, I usually know all the non-fundable errors and I can move on. It does take me significant amount of time though to go back and research why I'm getting errors that I don't think I should be getting errors, which again is time away from the things that really matter. Now, there's a lot of career center directors out there that have more than just 1 or 2 districts that funnel in. I can't, Prosser, for example, which is down south in Evansville, I can't wrap my brain around like the 14 or 15 school districts that funnel into him. I know enough about Tippy Valley where I can kind of look at their errors and be like, yeah, I think I can fix those. The other ones, I go to their site and we work through them together, and it takes a whole day. But it's also fun because when you fix all those errors, you can see the Form $38 increase. And so when you can put in, 7 hours of work and you've generated, $40,000 for a small school, that's fun. So yeah, everybody likes that. But that's the part with the funding is I can fix mine somewhat easy. I can't work on other schools, and it just takes time for that and how it spits it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next follow-up question is, do you have some particular tools or reports that you lean on for auditing? And do you have some things that you can't live without during that season?
Yeah, so any tool that's going to allow me to double check my funding, right? I know you guys have a product that we also use in terms of pathway completion. I know Robbie, that's where you and I got to know each other a little bit better. I was like, hey, I've got this entry report. It's a pain in my butt. It would be great if I could have a push of the button and you guys are pulling everything I need out of our SIS system. The whole state would love you, and then I can just upload that Excel file and then tweak a couple things and save myself, 40 hours of work.
Right.
Our enters system at the state level is actually a really great program. I can run tons of reports. So for me, when I get done with my account of my Form 38 funding numbers, my enrollment numbers, I will go and run a short report that will tell me by pathway how many kids are in there, and then I'll double check our SIS system. Especially usually if I go down, like for example, our welding and machining have really high numbers. Manufacturing is huge in our community. I know the number almost to the student that were 153 kids in that program. If I look at that report and see, 75, I know I'm missing half, which also means that's a six-figure mistake, right? So I use that report all the time. I also call my friends down there that are in charge of that and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Do you see anything that sticks out? Because they're super helpful, and then you can kind of go back and fix those. So a lot of the reports on our end, I don't know what Texas had, but our system has a lot of great reports. So many reports that I know I'm underutilizing that resource. But usually if I think about like, hey, does it have this? I'll reach out to them and they'll either run the report for me or help me out along the way. And the same thing with not to talk about Robbie, the same thing. I know we had conversations last year like, hey, it would be great if the software would do this because we're always wanting to find this answer and we don't have an easier way. Robbie, it was a year ago. I don't quite remember what exactly I was asking you, but I remember you and I having a conversation being like, this would be super helpful for me because this is what I care about. I think it was GPA averages because for Indiana, right, our kids need a C- average in the pathway classes to satisfy graduation requirements. And we run a GPA report, but it's not career center specific. So we use that as a screener, like anybody with a GPA lower than a C-, we want to take a look at. And 9 times out of 10, it's other classes that have dropped that GPA down, not the pathways that they're interested in, but we had no good way of identifying those. Because we want to catch those early. We don't want to catch those in April when we're a month away from graduation and, oh my goodness, the student has a C in their, concentrator B career center class, and we really need them to have a B+ to have them have a C- average. So those kind of reports are super valuable, and having partners like you guys or someone down in the state where I can say, I just want to push the button. I just want to work with kids. I don't want to like dumb luck fall into the right help. And so far, luckily, we've been able to identify with our counselors and our staff here every kid that needs help. But it takes time. It'd be so much easier if we can just run a report and get that, which isn't hard, right? It's not hard for software companies or the state to allocate those resources. Be like, you know what? We know what the IDE codes, the Indiana Department of Education codes are for classes. Let us integrate it into your SIS system. So that way we're just spitting out the grades for those 3 classes. Super helpful because we do want to make sure we close that achievement gap and help students graduate, which is one reason why Warsaw's graduation rate is 96+% is because we constantly run those reports. We make sure that it's not the career center requirements that keep kids from graduating.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. Ben, I've asked all the questions that I had on my list to ask. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? This has been great.
Yeah, no, I think, I wasn't an elementary teacher. I was a middle school teacher, then was a elementary STEM coach. I think every career center director should talk to their elementary principals because they have systems in place because that accountability system about reading and math instruction is really important, and they already have systems. So for us, RTI is an elementary, I mean, it's an education phrase, but it's really strong in the elementary world. Response to intervention, of identifying students and responding to them with interventions. We brought that model here. We don't call it RTI. We started calling it RTI, but it really confused our special needs teacher partners, because when I would say, hey, we met about this kid in RTI, well, they can't be in RTI. You're right, they can't. Let's change. So we ended up changing our system to multiple tiered systems of support, which is the overall umbrella, because that's really what it is. So we have a MTSS system in the Career Center where we have a form that teachers can fill out, and depending on what they check the boxes, and then we meet on those students. So I think that's really valuable for a Career Center to be able to identify those kids, because your teachers know best, but their plates are really full and they don't have access to the resources that we have access to, and the personnel and the community members. That if we can identify those kids, we can definitely intervene as soon as possible to help them close achievement gaps, maybe with certifications, achievement gaps with making sure they have a C- average, or a student who's pivoting from one career and now they want to go to college, and it's this end of their first semester of their senior year. We get all of those all the time. So creating a system to help identify those kids so you can use your resources to respond is really helpful. So if there's career center directors out there that aren't sure about how that process, that I would say go talk to your elementary principals and then look at it from a lens of how can I take that system and create an RTI team that meets weekly to help our students. And again, I've got my assistant director, our career counselor, that runs that, which is a bummer because I miss running that, because I did that when I was an elementary principal, again, because it deals with student data. But they're doing a great job running that. So that's one piece of advice I would say, is if you don't have like a MTSS intervention system in place, look at creating that, because you don't want to help students by dumb luck, like coming across the kids sitting out in the hallway and you're like, hey, why you're out here? Well, I really don't like my pathway class. You don't leave it to dumb luck. Leave it to systems to help kids.
Right.
Anybody
who have any questions? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
No, go ahead, Robbie. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just going to ask if anybody who was attending had any questions for Ben, I guess specifically for Indiana, but then also Lisa was a former CTE director in Texas. So if there's anyone from Texas who has some specific Texas questions, you're welcome to ask those in the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen for Zoom. You're welcome to go ahead and put those in there. But while there aren't any questions currently, so and if it would be better to allow you to talk and ask the question that way, we can also open up your microphone and allow that to happen as well. But otherwise, Lisa and Ben, we can continue the conversation. And if there's anything else that comes in the Q&A, I'll let you know.
Perfect. I loved that MTSS piece because that does segue really well. Sometimes academic requirements and CTE goals, they really don't play nicely together. We run into that in Texas all the time with our diploma requirements, and having to navigate that, especially toward the end of high school. Sometimes kids are forced to make decisions or to not make a decision that's really in their best interest. So that MTSS tool is that's a really great point, to have that structured support for kids that are about to leave high school. I love that.
Yeah, and I mentioned it earlier, taking that PLC time, because again, PLCs are important, but also not that it doesn't play nice. It's like almost like a round peg in a square hole kind of thing. We're at our career center, we're singleton based for most of our pathways, right? Or one or two, and if it's two, sometimes they co-teach. So that model doesn't quite work, to where using that time to have that MTSS, that form out there, and then passing it on to 5 or 6 teams, and each team is focusing on a different area of growth. With community members is kind of where our vision is for the future. And we're really excited, and it's picked up a lot of momentum within our teachers and with our community members to take all of this whole system. And that way, when we do identify a kid, it doesn't take us forever. And then having a system where, hey, let's go re-meet on this kid in 4 weeks, and how is it, whatever resource we gave them in the community, how are they doing, is really exciting to have it completely streamlined.
Yeah, that's exciting. It seems like that could be tied in really well with work-based learning and all of those other components. So you can really have a good, strong sense of how that's working well to serve kids and communities.
And what we talk about with our community members are also some funders that are very interested in what we're working on. tons of schools in the nation have PLC that's already carved out. It's not here. What's great, it's not extra time. Like, hey, stay after until 4 and let's talk about a kid, which is great. But if we can build that into the actual time, because teaching is really hard, we're hoping to, like, if anybody's interested, to take that model and then be like, well, if it works here, we have that same time. Can we just take it over here and build it again? So that's the other good thing, that when we're talking to people that are going to help us get from where we're at today to where we want to be at the end of the school year, it's not just something for us, it's something that can be replicated in other career centers and other districts to help, because everybody wants to help. We know from education who to help, specifically with kids. We don't necessarily have the resources to help every kid. There's tons of community members that want to help, they just don't know who, right? And so this is hopefully creating a system to where we bring those together, and we're way more efficient with helping the right people immediately.
Absolutely. And it's coming back to your community. We all know, when we're helping kids, it's coming, especially in the CTE arena, we're building stronger communities ultimately. That's
Agreed.
amazing.
Absolutely. Well, we
Okay.
are at the end of our time. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Lisa and to Ben, both for your expertise. Ben, for taking some time out of your day today to spend with us and share with us your expertise in the area of CTE. I want to thank you for joining us the EAI webinar. And just to let you know, we are an educational company. Like I said in the beginning, I'm a former teacher myself in Indiana. Lisa is a former educator as well as Ben. But we do have 3 total tools that we have within our collection of resources available to you. Evaluation, which is a teacher and staff evaluation resource that is in the growth model, and allows your administrators to be able to evaluate your teachers and your staff members and let them become better at their craft. Test Town, which is an assessment accommodation tracking resource that collects all of the information regarding accommodations and scores, when the students took the tests, where they took the tests, all of those types of things and those assessments, and allows you to organize that information a lot better. And then Test Town also has the ability to flow and send data to Pathways, which is our graduation pathways tracking resource, which you probably found out about this resource because of Pathways. So if any of those resources are of interest to you, you are more than welcome to ask any of us. You will get a follow-up email from registering for this. We'll also have the link to the recording as well, if you wanted to pass that on to anybody else. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again on another episode, I guess, of chatting with some educators. So thanks, and have a fantastic rest of your week. Take care.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more about college and career readiness, graduation tracking, teacher growth, assessment coordination, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Until next time.